Let's see how we get to draw the markings for the cleft lip repair using the anatomical subunit technique. The way I like to explain this is by identifying the concept behind the reconstruction, as opposed to just simply memorizing each single point and each single step as you would normally do for an exam. So the first element I would like to focus on is the height of the filtral column. So we always want to identify what is the known cleft anatomy as a reference so that we know what we want to achieve on the cleft side. We start by measuring the midpoint of the columella and then the foot plate of the columella on the non-cleft side, as well as the foot plate of the columella on the cleft side. With a caliper, we check that these measurements are asymmetrical. We then move on to measure of the peak of the cupid's bow on the non-cleft side. We mark the corresponding point above the wide roll. So the first dot is going to be right on the vermilion junction and right above the wide roll. We then mark the trough of the cupid's bow, and then we report this measurement, so in between the peak and the trough of the cupid bow on the cleft side, so that we identify the peak of the cupid bow on our cleft side. We then mark the corresponding point above the wide roll there. At this point, I'll use the green pen to mirror the initial diagram. We can measure the height of the filtral column on the non-cleft side and the height of the filtral column on our cleft side. These in the original paper are called A and B measurements. The formula has it that in order to identify the discrepancy, so the size of the triangle you want to recruit from the lateral lip element, you will have to subtract the length of B from A, so A minus B, minus 1 millimeter because of the Rose-Thompson effect, which is the derotation of these tissues during the repair. That would give you the measure C, which is the dimension of your triangular flap that you would want to go and draw on the lateral lip element. The next marking we want to focus on is the triangular flap. We're going to use the color yellow for this in order to mirror the original diagram. So we know we want to design a triangular flap on the lateral lip element of the dimension C. We need to decide where we are going to draw it. So in order to define the exact location, we need to identify a specific point on the vermilion border, which is called Noordhoff's point, which is the last point where the white roll is fully present before it starts to taper into the cleft. So let's mark it there, and we mark the corresponding point above the white roll. We would then report the measure C, and then the corresponding mark would go as a back cut here. So we know that this triangular flap is going to sit in this back cut in order to reconstruct the symmetry of our filtral columns. Next step would therefore be to return to the green to transpose the dimension of B. So we're going to transpose the same dimension as the filtral column on the cleft side, so dimension B, onto the lateral lip element there. And then we're going to switch to the color red to identify the nasal silk closure. So here on the medial aspect, we'll follow this lazy curve. So if you imagine that this is a lazy C around here, you want to identify the corresponding point, okay? And the same measure would be our third height to bring the nasal sill together. Finally, we move down onto the white roll. So I'm going to use the light blue for the white roll. This measurement would have to equate the white wall on the lateral lip element. And so with the same concepts, we're then going to move down to the vermilion. We measure on the non-cleft side to start, again for reference, the height of the dry vermilion. So can you see that there is a fine distinction here in between what we call the dry and the wet vermilion? And we want to know the height of this dry vermilion on the cleft side. We subtract these measures, and the difference is going to be the triangular flap that we want to recruit from the lateral lip element on the dry vermilion. So this is going to be our triangular flap, and then we have the corresponding back cut. So this triangle, in fact in the original paper this was more of a purpley color, so let's do that for visibility. So our dry vermilion flap would sit in the equivalent back cut on the medial lip element. And then you would simply have to draw the repair internally up to the buccal sulcus without discarding too much tissue. So this concludes my explanation of the anatomical subunit technique for unilateral cleft lip repair. If you would like to learn more or get in touch with any questions, please feel free to reach out on the link below. Ciao!